The Book of Disquiet by Fernando Pessoa, Section 251, Fragments of an Autobiography. First, I was engrossed in metaphysical speculations. Then, in scientific ideas. Finally, I was attracted to sociological concepts, but in none of these stages of my search for truth did I find relief or reassurance. I didn't read much in these various fields, but what I did read was enough to make me weary of so many contradictory theories, all equally based on elaborate rationales, all equally probable and in accord with a selection of the facts that always gave the impression of being all the facts. If I raised my tired eyes from the books, or if I distractedly shifted focus from my thoughts to the outside world, I saw only one thing, which plucked one by one all the petals of the notion of effort, convincing me that all reading and thinking are useless. What I saw was the infinite complexity of things, the vast sum, the utter attainability of even those few facts that would be necessary for the formation of a science. I gradually discovered the frustration of discovering nothing. I could find no reason or logic for anything, except a skepticism that didn't even seek a self-satisfying logic. It never occurred to me to cure myself of this, and, indeed, why be cured of it? What would it mean to be healthy? How could I be sure that this attitude meant I was sick? And if I was sick, who's to say that sickness wasn't preferable or more logical or more null than health? If health was preferable, then wasn't I sick due to some natural cause? And if it was natural, why go against nature, which for some purpose or other, if it has any purpose, must have wanted me to be sick? I never found convincing arguments for anything other than inertia, and over time, I became ever more keenly, sullenly aware of my inertia as an abdicator, seeking out modes of inertia, pleading to evade all personal struggle and social responsibility. This is the null substance from which I carve the imaginary statue of my existence. I got tired of reading, and I stopped arbitrarily pursuing now this, now that aesthetic mode of life. Of the little I did read, I learned to extract only the elements useful for dreaming. Of the little I saw and heard, I strove to take away only what could be prolonged in me as a distant and distorted reflection. I endeavored to make all my thoughts and all my daily chapters of my experience provide me with nothing but sensations. I gave my life an aesthetic orientation, and I made that aesthetic utterly personal, exclusively my own. The next step in the development of my inner hedonism was to shun all sensibility to things social. I shielded myself against feeling ridiculous. I learned to be insensitive to the appeals of instinct and to the entreaties of... I reduced my contact with others to a minimum. I did my best to lose all attachment to life. In time, I even shed my desire for glory, like a sleepy man who takes off his clothes to go to bed. After studying metaphysics and sciences, I went on to mental occupations that were more threatening to my nervous equilibrium. I spent frightful nights hunched over tomes by mystics and Kabbalists, which I never had the patience to read except intermittently, trembling, and the rites and mysteries of the Rosicrucians, the symbolism of the Kabbalah and the Templars. All of this oppressed me for a long time. My feverish days were filled with pernicious speculations, based on the demonic logic of metaphysics, magic, alchemy, and I derived a false, vital stimulus from the painful and quasi-psychic sensation of being always on the verge of discovering a supreme mystery. I lost myself in the delirious subsystems of metaphysics, systems full of disturbing analogies and pitfalls for lucid thought, vast, enigmatic landscapes where glimmers of the supernatural arouse mysteries on the fringes. Sensations aged me. Too much thinking wore me out. My life became a metaphysical fever, always searching for the occult meaning of things, playing with the fire of mysterious analogies, denigrating itself by putting off full lucidity and normal synthesis. I fell into a complex state of mental indiscipline and general indifference. Where did I take refuge? My impression is that I didn't take refuge anywhere. I abandoned myself to, I don't know what. I limited and focused my desires to hone and refine them, to reach the infinite, and I believe it can be reached. We need to have a sure port, just one, from which to set out for the indefinite. Today, I'm an ascetic in my religion of myself. A cup of coffee, a cigarette, and my dreams can substitute quite well for the universe and its stars, for work, love, and even beauty and glory. I need virtually no stimulants. I have opium enough in my soul. What dreams do I have? I don't know. I forced myself to reach a point where I'm no longer sure what I think, dream, or envision. I seem to dream ever more remotely about vague and imprecise things that can't be visualized. I have no theories about life. I don't know or wonder whether it's good or bad. In my eyes, it's harsh and sad, with delightful dreams interspersed here and there. Why should I care what it is for others? Other people's lives are of use to me only in my dreams, where I live the life that seems to suit each one. Thinking is still a form of acting. Only in sheer reverie, where nothing active intervenes and even our self-awareness gets stuck in the mud, only there, in this warm and damp state of non-being, can total renunciation of action be achieved. To stop trying to understand, to stop analyzing, to see ourselves as we see nature, to view our impressions as we view a field, that is true wisdom. Section 253. The sacred instinct of having no theories. Section 254. More than once, while roaming the streets in the late afternoon, I've been suddenly and violently struck by the bizarre presence of organization in things. It's not so much natural things that arouse this powerful awareness in my soul, it's the layout of the streets, the signs, the people dressed up and talking, their jobs, the newspapers, the logic of it all. Or rather, it's the fact that ordered streets, signs, jobs, people, and society exist, all of them fitting together and going forward and opening up paths. When I take a good look at man, I see that he's as unconscious as a dog or cat, that he speaks and organizes himself into society through a different kind of unconsciousness, patently inferior to the unconsciousness that guides ants and bees in their social life. And as if a light had turned on, the intelligence that creates and informs the world becomes as clear to me as the existence of organisms as clear as the existence of logical and invariable physical laws. On these occasions, I always recall the words of, I can't remember which scholastic, Deus est anima brutorum. God is the soul of the beasts. This marvelous phrase was the author's way of explaining the certainty with which instinct guides inferior animals, which display no intelligence, or only a primitive outline of one. But we are all inferior animals, and speaking and thinking are merely new instincts, less dependable than others precisely because they're new. So that the beautifully accurate phrase of the scholastic has a wider application, and I say, God is the soul of everything. I've never understood how anyone who has stopped to consider the tremendous fact of this universal watch mechanism can deny the watchmaker, in whom not even Voltaire disbelieved. I understand why, in light of certain events that have apparently deviated from a plan, and only by knowing the plan could one know if they have deviated from it, someone might attribute an element of imperfection to this supreme intelligence. I understand this, although I don't accept it. And I understand why, in view of the evil that's in the world, one might not acknowledge that the creating intelligence is infinitely good. I understand this, although, again, I don't accept it. But to deny the existence of this intelligence, namely God, strikes me as one of those idiocies that sometimes afflict in one area of their intelligence men who in all other areas may be superior. Those, for example, who systematically make mistakes in adding and subtracting, or who, considering now the intelligence that rules aesthetic sensibility, cannot feel music or painting or poetry. I've said that I don't accept the notion of the watchmaker who is imperfect or who isn't benevolent. I reject the notion of the imperfect watchmaker because those aspects of the world's government and organization that seem flawed or nonsensical might prove otherwise if we only knew the plan. While clearly seeing a plan in everything, we also see certain things that apparently make no sense. But if there's a reason behind everything, then won't these things be guided by the same reason? Seeing the reason, but not the actual plan, how can we say that certain things are outside the plan when we don't know what it is? Just as a poet of subtle rhythms can insert an arrhythmic verse for rhythmic purposes, i.e. for the very purpose he seems to be going against. And a critic who's more linear than rhythmic will say that the verse is mistaken. So, the Creator can insert things that our narrow logic considers arrhythmic into the majestic flow of his metaphysical rhythm. I admit that the notion of an unbenevolent watchmaker is harder to refute, but only on the surface. One could say that since we don't really know what evil is, we cannot rightfully affirm that something is good or bad, but it's true that a pain, even if it's for our ultimate good, is obviously bad in itself, and this is enough to prove that evil exists in the world. A toothache is enough to make one disbelieve in the goodness of the Creator. The basic error in this argument seems to lie in our complete ignorance of God's plan, and our equal ignorance of what kind of an intelligent person the intellectual infinite might be. The existence of evil is one thing, the reason for its existence is another. The distinction may be subtle to the point of seeming sophistic, but it is nevertheless valid. The existence of evil cannot be denied, but one can deny that the existence of evil is evil. I admit that the problem persists, but only because our imperfection persists. Section 255. If there's one thing life grants us for which we should thank the gods, besides thanking them for life itself, it's the gift of not knowing ourselves, and of not knowing each other. The human soul is a murky and slimy abyss, a well on the earth's surface that's never used. No one would love himself if he really knew himself, and without the vanity which is born of this ignorance and is the blood of the spiritual life, our souls would die of anemia. No one knows anyone else, and it's just as well, for if he did, he would discover in his very own mother, wife, or son his inveterate metaphysical enemy. We get along because we're strangers at heart. What would become of so many happy couples if they could see into another's soul? If they could truly understand one another, as romantics say, without knowing the danger, albeit ultimately inconsequential, of what they're saying. All marriages are flawed because each partner holds inside, in a secret corner where the soul belongs to the devil, the wispy image of the desired man who is nothing like the husband, the hazy figure of the sublime woman whom the wife doesn't live up to. The happiest people are unaware of their frustrated inclinations. The less happy are aware, but choose to ignore them. And only an occasional jerky movement or brusque remark evokes, on the casual surface of gestures and words, the hidden demon, the ancient Eve, the night, and the sylph. The life we live is a flexible, fluid misunderstanding, a happy mean between the greatness that doesn't exist and the happiness that can't exist. We are content, thanks to our capacity, even as we think and feel, for not believing in the soul's existence, in the masked ball which is our life. We're satisfied by the agreeable sensation of the costumes, which are all that really count for a ball. We're servants of the lights and colors, moving in the dance as if in the truth, and we're not even aware, unless remaining alone, we don't dance, of the so cold and lofty night outside, of the mortal body under the tatters that will outlive it, of all that we privately imagine is essentially us, but that is actually just an inner parody of that supposedly true self. All that we do, say, think, or feel wears the same mask and the same costume. No matter how much we take off what we wear, we'll never reach nakedness, which is a phenomenon of the soul, and not of removing clothes. And so, dressed in a body and soul with our multiple costumes stuck to us like feathers on a bird, we live, happily or unhappily, or without knowing how we live, this brief time given us by the gods that we might amuse them like children who play at serious games. One or another man, liberated or cursed, suddenly sees, but even this man sees rarely, that all we are is what we aren't, that we fool ourselves about what's true and are wrong about what we conclude is right. And this man, who, in a flash, sees the universe naked, creates a philosophy or dreams up a religion. And the philosophy spreads and the religion propagates, and those who believe in the philosophy begin to wear it as a suit they don't see. And those who believe in the religion put it on as a mask they soon forget, knowing neither ourselves nor each other, and therefore, cheerfully getting along, we keep twirling round in the dance and chatting during the intervals, human, futile, and in earnest, to the sound of the great orchestra of the stars, under the aloof and disdainful gaze of the show's organizers. Only they know we're the prey of the illusion they created for us. But what's the reason for this illusion? And why is there this or any illusion? And why did they, likewise deluded, give us the illusion they gave us? This undoubtedly not even they know.